Hi there, folks. Thanks for visiting LankSports.com. Keith Schweigert and Jeff Reinhardt here with our rundown of the District 3 triple, double, and single A playoffs. We have 5 Lancaster-Lebanon League teams on those respective brackets. Let's start with AAA and take a look at the games there. First of all, we have number 13, Cocalico, going up against number 4, West York. And Jeff, some facts about the Bulldogs here. They won the York Adams Division II title, and they're entering the playoffs on a 6-game winning streak. Yes. Their only losses were to a pair of Quad A playoff teams. They lost to Governor Mifflin and Dallastown earlier in the season. The Bulldogs averaged 317 yards a game on offense and 31 points per game. Their top players, quarterback Caden Hepler, he has 1,400 yards passing, 16 touchdowns. The running back is Zach Trone. He has 828 yards, 13 TDs in 7 games this season. He missed some time with injuries. And their top receiver is wideout Brett Campbell. He has 943 yards and 12 scores. Strength of the team, though, really is their defense. They allow just 202 yards per game and 12 points per game, and 106 of those yards comes on the ground. During their winning streak, they've held opponents to 92 rushing yards and 6.5 points per game. So they are really rolling here. As I mentioned, they lost to Governor Mifflin. Cocalico, of course, also played the Mustangs and lost 31-12 in Week 2. So how do you see the Eagles matching up here?
Well, I think West York's going to go up against its toughest challenge as far as rushing attacks. Cocalico, 2,998 rushing yards, so they'll go over 3,000 this week. Austin Hartman's back, and he's been great. Ever since he's come back from the ankle, he's been well over 100 yards the last couple of weeks. 204 yards last week and 4 touchdowns. So got to see if Spencer Moser comes back, the freshman quarterback. He's been out the last couple of weeks. He could be kind of a game-time decision. I think if Cocalico gets Moser back and he can do his thing, I think Cocalico's got a shot here. I mean, West York's defense sounds pretty gnarly, but I don't think they've really seen a back like Hartman, and Cocalico's got some speed kids on the edges like High and Martin, so homer alert.
Taking the
Eagles? Yeah, they're kind of chiseled. They played a great schedule. I don't see why they can't go over there and beat them, especially if Hartman goes off like 200 yards or more.
I agree that Cocalico is a different team with Hartman. However, I'm going to stick with West York here just because they seem to be rolling so much on defense. As you mentioned, I don't know that they've run up into a team with Cocalico's strength on offense, especially a back like Hartman. Don't see a lot of 2,000-yard rushers over in the York Adams League, although they do have some good players over there. Still, I like that West York defense. I think Cocalico is going to be challenged here. We'll see if they can overcome it, but I'm sticking with West York. The other next game on the docket is the 15th seed Big Spring going up against number 2 Lampeter Strasburg. This one's in Lampeter, Friday at 7 p.m. Some notes about the Bulldogs here. They've lost 2 straight and 3 of 4 entering the playoffs, so they're kind of limping their way in. They got beat by Northern 21-10, and the top seed Greencastle Antrim just decked them 41-3 in the last couple of weeks. Their only win during their span was over 1-9 James Buchanan, and that was a 53-7 rout, but James Buchanan's 1-9, as I mentioned. Best win of the season, though, they knocked off Shippensburg in Week 4. They beat them 20-19, so that is a good win. However, their worst loss came a week later. They lose to then winless West Perry 8-7 in overtime. So it was a scoreless tie through 4 quarters. I think West Perry wound up being like 3-7 this year, so that's not a great loss. The Bulldogs average 256 yards per game and 19.7 points per game on offense. Most of that comes on the ground. They have 2 good running backs in Colby Witten and Matthew Gibson. They have 1,600 yards and 14 TDs combined. Gibson's also the team's leading receiver with 308 yards. So Big Spring really doesn't pass the ball a whole lot. They are pretty solid on defense, 265 yards and 17 points per game. They only allow 85 passing yards per game. So if Ellis is going to beat them, it's probably going to be in the ground. How do you like this matchup with the Pioneers and the Bulldogs?
Oh, I love it for LS.
Yeah.
I hate to use the words mercy rule in one of these, but I think LS just rolls here. This is Big Spring's first ever trip to the postseason, so I think they might have some wide eyes coming to LS. And LS is coming off the loss to CV in Week 10, which cost them a 10-0 season and the number 1 seed, but too much balance, too much depth. LS is 3rd in the league in defense, and they're fired up after losing last week.
Absolutely.
LS rolls.
Yeah, I agree.
Pioneers big,
Pioneers all the way.
Real big, unless it's a torrential downpour in a muddy field. I think LS absolutely rolls here. Pioneers.
Okay, last AAA game. We have number 10 Dover going up against Mannheim Central. Dover finished 6-4 in the season. They were 3rd in Division II of the York Adams League. They're making their first playoff appearance since 1995 when they were
Beaten soundly by Manheim Central.
Yeah, they were clubbed pretty good by the Barons.
Yeah.
They clinched their berth last week. They beat Susquehannock 48-31, but they had to come back from 17 down.
Wow.
That game had 850 yards of offense, so that was kind of a wild one. Dover has not beaten a single team with a winning record, and they are 0-3 against District 3 playoff teams. So take from that what you will.
Oh, I have.
They do have good offensive numbers. They average 324 yards a game, 32 points per game. Tanner Link, the running back, led York Adams in rushing.
Yes.
He had 1,300 yards and 18 scores.
Yes.
So he's the guy to watch for Dover.
Yes.
How do you see him matching up here with the Barons?
Can I say mercy rule again?
Yeah, I think
Central smoking, Keith. That's all we've been talking about for 4 weeks. We all knew they were going to go 4-0 and just come charging head first into the playoffs, and they have. Central's won 4 games in a row. They've scored 42 points or more the last 3 weeks in a row. Their defensive numbers have come way down. They're still giving up 300 yards, but they were giving up like 375 yards. They've come way down in that. They've only turned the ball over 6 times all season. That's it. Chase Moyer, 17 touchdowns, 2 picks. He's been efficient. Tyler Griffiths is back and healthy.
All points to Barons.
Oh, this is going to be bad. Congrats to Dover for getting here, but enjoy Mannheim. But boy, Barons large, very large.
I don't know if it's a mercy rule game, but I don't think I don't think the Central breaks a sweat here.
No, they're going for district title number 17. Don't forget, they're the defending champs. We'll see. This one's not going to be easy, but I think they roll here big time.
Okay, let's move on to AA. We have the top-seeded Lancaster Catholic Crusaders hosting number 8 Schuylkill Valley. I'll be blogging live from this game Friday at 7 o'clock. So what I got on Schuylkill Valley, they finished 4th in the Berks IC Section 2 race. They were 2-3 after Week 5, but turned it on in the last 5 games. They won 4 out of 5. Nice. Only 2 wins against teams with winning records, though. One of those was a single A team. That was St. Pius X. They're out of District 11. They went 7-3, and Schuylkill Valley also beat Hamburg, who went 6-4. They lost to Cocalico, Reading Holy Name, Blue Mountain, and Wyomissing by a combined margin of 166-89. So they haven't looked very good in their losses. No. They have a good offense, 31 points a game, 394 yards per game. That's second among Berks County teams, only to Wilson, at least in terms of offensive yardage. So they do put up numbers. The quarterback is Derek Gall. He's the team's rushing leader. He has 1,100 yards and 16 touchdowns. He also has 1,000 yards passing and 7 touchdowns there, so he's a dual threat. Their defense isn't very good, however. 312 yards per game, 23 points per game. Most of that damage comes in the ground. They allow nearly 300 yards per game on the ground, so that doesn't bode well for a matchup with Lancaster Catholic and Amos Clay. But what can you tell us about the Crusaders here?
It's money time. This is what we've been waiting for here for 10 weeks, and now it's time for Catholic to show what it's got. I mean, we've heard, are they as good as last year? We'll start finding out Friday. Wow, John Rhoda, top-ranked passer in the league, had a rating of 200, which is off the charts. Roman Clay, 1,200 yards rushing, and he'll be back this week. Number 2 defense in the league, number 2 offense in the league. Plus 15 turnover ratio, 27 takeaways. It's Catholic. This is it. We've been pointing for this for 10 weeks. Can they win District 3 again?
I look for Roman Clay Roman Clay's going to have a huge game here because he was pretty ticked off that he had to miss last week with that suspension, and look what he did against Danville the week before. I think the word mercy rule creeps into this one again. I don't see Catholic having any trouble here. Schuylkill Valley's offense, they put up their numbers. I don't think they've run into a defense like Catholic's, and I know they haven't seen an offense as good as Catholic's. So, I don't see them faring very well.
See you next week, Lancaster Catholic.
And finally, on to the single A game. One of the only single-A first-round game here because we had 3 teams opt out of the playoffs, but we have the 5th-seeded Columbia Crimson Tide going up to take on Steel High. The Rollers finished 4th in Mid-Penn in the Keystone Division. 4 losses against quality teams. East Pennsboro, Trinity, Boiling Springs, and my alma mater, Schuylkill Haven.
There you go.
They have a combined 31-9 record on the season, and 3 out of those 4 games were pretty lopsided. Steel High really wasn't in too many of them. But the Rollers have good offensive numbers. They average over 300 yards per game on offense, close to 30 points per game. The quarterback is Max Ward. He has close to 1,500 yards passing, 10 touchdowns. Clayton McNair, the running back, has 1,400 yards and 21 TDs on the season. And they have a good receiver in J.C. Brandt. He has 726 yards and 5 touchdowns. Steel High's problems have been on defense, much like Columbia, I guess. They average 308 yards and 27 points per game. Most of that comes on the ground, but East Penn and Trinity both lit them up through the air. So they can be passed on, which bodes well for Columbia.
That's Columbia's bread and butter, Max Ward had over 2,000 yards passing and 28 touchdowns last year. His stats have come down a smidge. Columbia's passing attack, as you mentioned, has been great. Tyler Harrison, oh my goodness, 1,990 yards passing, 21 touchdowns. Mike Burke, the fourth, has had an incredible season. He's got to be all-state for single A. 66 catches, 1,027 yards, 15 touchdowns. He's been off the charts. This game, to me, smells like a shootout. I think there's going to be some points in this game. Seriously, this could be in the 30s or 40s, quite frankly. I'm going to lean Steel High because they're at home, and this McNair kid sounds tough. Columbia's had a tough time stopping the run. They've given up 2,300 rushing yards. I think if this McNair kid goes off and gets 150 to 200 yards, I think Steel High probably wins, but I think it's in a shootout. Yeah.
I mean, Columbia's passing games, it gives them a puncher's chance here because Steel High, they're not the Steel High that we're used to seeing in the single A playoffs. They're down a little bit this year, but I'm leaning toward the Rollers because they're at home and because they have McNair.
Yes.
I think they find a way to pull it out, even if it does turn into a wild one like we
38,
anticipate
34,
it will.
30, it's going to be something like that. A lot of points in that one.
Yep. So there you have it, folks. Thanks for visiting lanksports.com. Be sure to check the website on Friday night for all of our playoff results. Jeff and I will both be blogging live from games, so look for those, and we'll have the finals up as within minutes of the final buzzers.
Got it.
Thanks again for coming to the site, and enjoy the games on Friday.